Welcome to Jersey Matters. I'm Larry Mendte. Today we talk about sex abuse on college campuses and what students can do to stop it. Our interview with the Passaic County Prosecutor is just ahead. Also on today's show, the state takeover of Newark's public schools is over. So how are the schools doing? A new potential health hazard has been found in schools throughout New Jersey. We'll tell you what it is. And the mayor of Paterson is welcoming Hollywood into his city. And now, our interview with Passaic County Prosecutor Camelia Valdes. Let's talk about Passaic County first. How many college campuses do you have there?
We have William Patterson University, we have Montclair State, we have Berkeley College, and we have Passaic County Community College.
Is this what we're talking about, a big problem in those campuses?
We are talking about sexual violence on all campuses. And our main universities are Montclair and William Patterson, and that's where you have residential students. So we spend a lot of time focusing our attention on talking to women and men at these campuses because they live there.
But you have numbers, right?
Yes.
Are things getting better or are things getting worse? Is it about the same?
We hope that things are getting better. We're doing a lot of campaigning on those campuses to really explain to people how to avoid having an allegation of sexual violence on campus, what it means, what consent means legally. And so we hope that it's getting better, but we're still always facing underreporting because there's stigma, there's embarrassment, people don't want to come forward. And if they do come forward, they don't necessarily want the police involved. So there's a lot of factors. It's not cut and dry.
There are a lot of factors.
Yes.
And it was interesting. I heard a psychologist talking about this recently, why people don't report on college campuses. And they said the number one reason is because the victim or the alleged victim will say, is this something I did?
Yes.
Is it my fault?
Yes.
Is that, you're finding that?
We find that when we talk to young people, there are a lot of factors. So embarrassment, blaming themselves, did I do something? So we talk about rape culture, and what that means is sometimes, and we train on this with law enforcement, sometimes you will hear people say, well, look at how she was dressed. What did she expect? Or, but they were in a dating relationship before, so how do we know that this is actually real, that an assault actually happens? So those are the types of questions that young people are confronted with, that they ask themselves. And so we talk, when we go to college campuses, very specifically about things that we see in law enforcement, so that people are clearer about what the expectation is.
I don't think people know what the expectation is. I talked to a lot of teenagers recently, boys and girls, who brought this up on their own and said, because I think there was a news story or something, and they started saying, we don't even know what the rules are anymore. We don't know how we're supposed to act. We don't know what's allowed and not allowed. And I thought that was disturbing.
Right. I think that's true. I think a lot of people still are not sure. So what we focus our attention on is the concept of consent. So if you're dating someone, if you're interested in someone, be clear about what the other person wants. Have a conversation about that, because nonverbal communication sometimes is subject to interpretation. And so we talk about very specific examples. For example, we will say to young people, if you buy someone a drink, that at a bar, that does not mean necessarily that at the end of the night you're gonna have sex with that person. So if you think that buying a drink, and because we see a lot of our incidents involve alcohol or drug abuse. So if a person is inebriated, if they're drunk, that might not be the best time to try to have sex with them. And we say it
even
that
if
plainly.
they give a positive answer, even if they say, okay, well, you can still be in trouble?
Well, if they're drunk, they can't legally consent. If they are passed out, they can't consent. If someone suffers from a developmental disability, they can't consent.
Even if they say yes?
Well, if they're drunk, even if they say yes, we're going to look at that from a law enforcement perspective and understand that they couldn't legally consent.
So if someone is, I just want to make sure that, because this is important,
Sure.
If someone is intoxicated.
Yes.
And the other person is intoxicated
Yes.
too, and that person says yes, and then afterwards has regret and wants to file charges, you may be charged.
Yes, it's because, again, consent is it intelligent consent? Is it, was a person in their right state of mind? And that is where a lot of the haziness comes, where people are not really sure about what the rules are. So anything that goes to the heart of whether this person can really give you an intelligent yes or no is something that we train our young people and we talk to young people about. Now, a lot of these cases are very fact sensitive, so we look at them, but those are the types of things that we talk to young people about so that they can avoid problems.
You understand that that scenario that I just talked about with you scares young boys to death.
Sure.
Because they're not sure what to do, and they're inebriated too. They're not making good decisions either.
Exactly. Well, a lot of it is choices, and a lot of it is in terms of holding people accountable. We also have to make sure that people are responsible for their own behavior. And 9 times out of 10, if alcohol is involved or drugs are involved, that sets the stage for a very slippery situation in terms of what are people really communicating to one another.
I like what you said, that you're responsible for your own behavior. Young men will argue, you're saying that they're responsible for their behavior,
Absolutely.
but the young woman is not.
Well, we make sure when we talk to men and women that everyone is responsible for their own behavior. Because while law enforcement, obviously, if there's an allegation that comes forward, and the statistics are that 1 in 5 women nationally will be assaulted on a college campus. And we have male victims as well. 1 in 16 nationally will come forward and say that something happens to them. But there's still stigma, there's still shaming, there's still, well, what did you expect was going to happen?
I understand. Does it always have to be verbal consent? Because that's not the way life works.
Well, that's part of what we talk about, and because it's awkward. And so we say to young people, yes means yes, and everything else means no. So, and it's not as easy as—
You're saying there has to be a yes.
Well, there has to be a yes, because, for example, a lot of problems arise with nonverbal communication. Well, she walked to the room with me, and I'm saying she because that's the majority of the victims that we see. She led me on. She gave me mixed signals. What was I supposed to think? If there's even a thought or there should be a pause in what is actually happening, that will help young men protect themselves against allegations that sometimes are not true. And so we talk to students about all of the things that can happen. So not only is a criminal prosecution on the one end of the spectrum possible, but there are things that you can be subjected to in terms of the schools, in terms of the school's code of conduct, in terms of getting expelled or suspended.
Many stories just like this, yeah. What you're saying is absolutely true.
So while it may be a departure from how we used to do things, well, a look means that you want this or that. A look is not going to get it, especially when you're balancing what could happen if you misinterpret what that look is.
Right. No, I think it is important for young people to know that, but it doesn't take away the fact that they're scared to death of it.
I'd rather they be scared and not charged.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank
I appreciate you coming in. Prosecutor Camelia Valdes of Passaic County. Still to come on Jersey Matters, how are Newark schools doing now that the state takeover is over? We'll find out when Jersey Matters continues.